Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. For those who are new to the show, if you would please subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And please don't forget to give the show a like. Now, tonight, I'm really excited to bring you Reverend Mother Kristina Rake. And a Reverend Mother is a priest of the United States Old Catholic Church. Under Archbishop James Long, she has a master's degree in theology. She is a writer, an artist, a public speaker, a member of Mensa. She is a psychic medium with other supernatural gifts. She has dealt with the demonic attacks since she was a small child. At age 10, she began studying the demonology and occult and continues those studies today. Reverend Mother Rake is also the author of God and the Paranormal, Mediums, Ghosts, and the Afterlife in the Bible. And that's going to be our topic tonight. So everyone, please, let's welcome Reverend Mother Kristina Rake to the show. Kristina, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, hi, Noreen. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
I'm very excited to have you on. Now, this book that you've written, it's all the topics that we are completely interested in, myself and the viewers. God, the paranormal, mediums, ghosts, the afterlife, and in the Bible. So could you talk about this subject with us, please?
Oh, sure. It's interesting. I have been studying theology, and particularly Catholic theology and apologetics, and been teaching adults apologetics, which is responding to people who either attack or more commonly misunderstand the faith. And it was through that I realized when psychics would come to me and say, Reverend, I'm being told by my pastor that I'm going to hell. I'm a paranormal investigator, and my mother thinks that I'm messing with demons because there's no such things as ghosts. And these people would come to me, and in the back of my brain, I had this storehouse of knowledge and information about the fact that the Bible tells us we have to have a relationship with the dead. The Catholic Church has had saints. They believed in prayer for the dead since the apostles, since Jesus Christ. And so I had all of this history and Bible knowledge, and so I would write these emails back to people. I got so many questions about this specific topic that I wrote one very long email with all of the scripture verses that they needed to cite, and I would just copy and paste that out to people. And then about a year and a half ago, actually, at this point, the book's been out for almost a year, so it would have been 2 years ago. I finally said, I just got to write a book so that I can just put it in someone's hands and say, here, this is what you need to know. It explains where all of this information is, and it explains those 4 verses in the Old Testament that seem to say you can't have any relationship with the dead, and what those actually mean, and why mistranslations have caused all this problem for you. And that was the whole inspiration for this, was to make a resource where when you get into one of those fights in a bar at 9 p.m. with an evangelical, you can whip this out and open to page 45 and read them the 50 scripture verses that talk about speaking with the dead. And so that was the whole reason I wrote this, was to get this into the hands of people who were being attacked and maligned for really no reason, because others just didn't know their Bible.
Oh, so now what about the paranormal, God and the paranormal?
Well, when I say the paranormal, I'm talking about defending paranormal investigation and relationships with the dead and mediumship. It's really a defense of people, evangelical Christians, who attack paranormal investigators, psychic mediums, and say there are no ghosts in the Bible, there's no such thing as ghosts, that you're flirting with the devil, you're a demon, if you're a medium. This book specifically talks about where those things are in the Bible and what they mean. So when I say paranormal, I'm talking about all of those things, the things that I just spoke about.
I know after some of my shows that I air, underneath there are people that will say, "What's the matter with you? There's no such thing as demons or ghosts or any of that." I see that quite a bit.
Right. And what's interesting is the evangelical Christians, I explained this in the first chapter, it's most often the people that will fight the Bible against you and say you shouldn't be doing this. They actually don't believe that there are human spirits on the earth. They think that those of us who believe we're investigating ghosts are being tricked by demons. They don't believe it's possible for a human consciousness without a body to remain here on earth, as if God just vacuums them up and they don't have free will after death. And so when they'll say there's no such thing as ghosts, they're just all demons, that's what I mean. I address those type of arguments from evangelical Christians. But I actually do have another book I'm working on that addresses all of this for skeptics, people who don't believe in any of it, think we're nuts for believing any of that stuff. This is volume 1, that's volume 2. But this one addresses specifically those religious folks who are always attacking us by showing them how little about their own Bible they don't know.
Now, is this in Christianity, and would it be different with the Jewish faith, Muslims, with all the other faiths?
Yeah, this addresses specifically the Old and New Testament. So this is focused on Christianity, even though I have to explain where these Christian beliefs, these Catholic Christian beliefs, come from Judaism. Prayer for the dead, that was something the Jews in Jesus' day did. They believed in an afterlife that had different sections: paradise, hell, limbo, purgatory. And then, of course, so did the Christians after them. And so I have to go back to Judaism, but they would similarly agree with a lot of what I say, but those faiths, no, this is specifically the Bible and Christianity. They use other holy texts. Mm-hmm. But a lot of Jewish writings are used in this scripture because Jesus was Jewish. The apostles were Jewish. They did not found a brand new religion. When they came along, they were in a religion, and they just fulfilled it and transformed it. So there's a lot of Jewish beliefs in the Bible and Christianity, and they're in the book as well.
Now, you also talk in this book about the afterlife in the Bible.
Yes. Yes, when you're talking about having a relationship with the dead, you have to explain what it is they believed happens to you when you die. And the concept of what the afterlife was when you start in the Old Testament and move into Jesus' teachings, which is that afterlife is what Catholicism still believes, and most of the other religions that have broken off from Catholicism have dropped purgatory and saints and all that, and that goes back to Jesus and the apostles. But the Jews initially believed that when you die, you went to the abode of the dead, which was called Sheol in Hebrew. In the King James Version, it's translated Hades. Hades isn't hell. That was a translation of what Sheol was. It's a place where you're sort of a shadow of your former self. When you died, God had no interaction with you anymore. You were in the land of the dead, and your existence was very similar to what it was here, but this place was not a nice place, and they didn't have a really firm view of what happened when you died. And as thousands of years went by, they started to understand, as they got the law and learned more about God, that Sheol had three different parts. There was the part where the righteous waited for the Messiah to come and bring about the resurrection. That was called God's paradise. And so that's where Abraham and Adam and Isaac and Noah waited, because the Jews believed you can't get into heaven until the Messiah comes. So they waited in this really beautiful place for the Messiah to come and bring them to heaven. That's mentioned in the New Testament. Peter talks about that specifically, about the righteous who waited since the days of Noah. And I talk about where all these scripture verses are in the New Testament that reference these places. So they waited for the Messiah to come. There was a place called Gehenna, which Jesus mentions, translated as Gehenna, or hell, where the evil were tormented. And then there was a place that had no name. It was referred to as limbo by the Jews. And this is where you went to be punished for a short time, but when the Messiah came, you would go to heaven, and you could pray for people in this place. The Catholics referred to it by the 3rd century as purgatory, because the Jews believed that would survive when the Messiah came. But when he came, he did something called the harrowing of hell. The Messiah came to earth, died. While Jesus was in the tomb, he descended to Sheol. That's where we get the part of the Apostles' Creed where it says he died and was buried, he descended to the dead. He went into Sheol, and then he gathered up all the righteous people waiting to get to heaven. He gathered up all the people who were being prayed for, and he brought them up into paradise. So that now when you die, purgatory is heaven's mudroom. You go to heaven, you wait outside until you're purged of your ego and you're purged of all those things that keep you from God, and then you go into heaven. But Gehenna remains separate, and that is hell. And that would remain for all time once the Messiah came. And so that was the Jewish belief, the afterlife belief. And this is exactly what the New Testament teaches. And so this is how we continue to maintain a relationship with the dead. That is what the afterlife looks like for Christians now. And that's exactly what the Jews believed would happen when the Messiah showed up. And so I show you where in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, in other ancient writings, all of this is explained in the book so you can understand the progression.
So your theory is there's a purgatory, we wait there, and then you say there's a hell as well. There's a heaven, hell, and a purgatory.
Yes, and purgatory is not a third option. It's part of heaven. It's where you go to get cleaned up to get into heaven.
Okay, so then your theory is if somebody does, those that are going to go to hell, if they go to hell, because you said that there is a hell, do they go to purgatory first and either go to heaven or hell, or do they just go straight into hell?
No, first of all, it's not my theory. This is what Jews and Christians have believed for thousands of years.
Okay.
This is what the church teaches, what the Catholic Church teaches, because it goes right back to Judaism. When you die, you either go to heaven or hell is the theory. Of course, it's not taking into account all the complexities of your free will, because some people will stay here, and I'm not explaining what happens to cause that, because God doesn't send you to hell. You choose hell. When you face God after your death and you do not want to be with him because you've so marred and scarred yourself through your life that to be with someone who loves you would be torture to you, then he allows you to go someplace where he isn't, and that's hell. It's not a place of punishment. It's a place where God is not. And so that remains in existence. Purgatory is part of heaven, and all psychics believe in this. They all talk about a process of either going to the hospital or getting cleaned up or layers of the afterlife. Everybody believes in some kind of process where your ego is stripped from you, because your ego is what you developed here, your sense of self, and it's always an illusion. So that gets stripped from you before you get to be in paradise. There are levels of heaven, and any psychic medium will tell you exactly the same thing. They use different terms for it. So it's not a third option when you die and you're going to heaven, and that you've chosen God, and that's the direction you want to go in. You go through this process of purification. I mean, I in my book, I explain what I think happens, and I believe it's tied to near-death experience life reviews, where you feel the consequences of every single one of your actions. And you don't feel, when you yelled at that clerk, you don't only just feel how badly she felt, you feel everything that happened to her that day and afterwards as a result of your interaction with her. I believe that learning process is exactly what occurs during purgatory. It's instantaneous. I mean, there's no time on the other side. Talking about waiting or waiting years or something is completely wrong. There is no time. Everything is eternal. It's all already happened. And so that's just a process of purification for you to move on, because your soul is pure consciousness. Your ego is not consciousness. It's tied to the horrible parts of living. And so that's what purgatory is. It's heaven's mudroom. It's the place you go in to get cleaned up, to continue on through your journey as a soul, as a person without a body.
What about a description? Now, I'm a Roman Catholic. I went to Catholic school, and I was taught that there is a hell, but there was fire and all kinds of awful things happening in hell. So what could you tell us about hell? What do you know about hell, and what is hell really like? Do you know?
Well, I don't know personally, thankfully.
But no, I didn't mean it that way. But from all, because all your knowledge, because you're extremely knowledgeable, and what could you tell us about hell?
Sure, I was just joking.
Oh.
I say that when anybody,
I hope you.
I don't know.
I didn't mean it that.
I do.
I didn't mean it that way.
Here's the thing. When you're in this life and you're describing pain, all right, and not physical pain, but you're describing existential pain, the pain of waiting, the pain of being betrayed, you describe it in physical terms. My God, it was like pulling teeth. He stabbed me in the back. They threw me under the bus. It was excruciating. I wanted to put my eyes out. So we describe any kind of psychological pain in physical terms. And I think it's the same with hell. I mean, we're describing fire because it's burning, and we're describing filth, and we describe darkness, and we describe cold, too, because there's no love. I think that those are just words we can use for an existence that we cannot describe. The reason there's a hell, let me explain this, and then it gives you a better picture. Since you went to Catholic school, you probably remember the Jewish and Christian story about Satan, and how Lucifer was a seraphim, the highest of all of God's angels, the closest to God. He was the highest of all 9 orders of angels, and he said he did not want to serve God. And so war started. St. Michael, who was one of the lowest order of the angels, shouted, "Who is like God?" Incidentally, that's what his name means in Hebrew, Michael, who is like God. That's how he got his name. That's the word he shouted, Michael, who is like God. And so in saying that he and the good angels battled the evil angel, and the evil angels lost. Well, they didn't want to be with God. That was their free will. We have free will in the afterlife. That's proof. We're allowed to not go anywhere if we want to stay on earth as a soul, to be a ghost.
No
but
way.
They didn't want to be there. And God always gives us our choices. He always lets us make our own bed. But then he makes us lay in it. And so what he did was he created a space in the universe where he wasn't. He's God. He's everywhere. But he pulled himself out of a space of existence so these demons could go to a place where there was no God. And so all the theologians, from the rabbis through the monks in the Middle Ages and everything, the chief torment of hell isn't fire. It's that there is no God, and therefore there is no hope. So the way they describe, here, Harry Potter's a perfect example. The way J.K. Rowling describes the Dementors, where every ounce of light and hope in life is sucked out of you, where nothing will ever be okay again, where there is no possibility of ever getting better, of ever having joy, so much so that you don't even know what joy is. That's hell. Imagine the deepest, darkest depression you have ever been in and multiply it times 1,000,000 and make it last forever. That's hell. And so how would you describe that pain? Like being torn apart, the filth of having to live with hating yourself, the burning of your self-anger and loathing, the cold of a loveless life. That's what hell is like.
Oh my goodness. You know, when people are in their last hours, last minutes of death, and they have these visions of the white light. Some of them have had the black tunnel, and those people I've heard are not so happy about dying because they actually went through a black tunnel. Now, why there's a difference between the white light and the black tunnel, I don't know what the explanation is. Have you ever been around anyone in their last minutes or hours, and have you questioned them when they say, "Oh, I see the light," or "I see my cousin that I haven't seen, in years," and they had died? Have you ever been around that?
Yes, I was a hospice volunteer in college, so I was around several people who were going through the process of dying, and my friend Dr. Chuck was a hospice nurse for like 20 years, and so we compare notes. But in addition, I've known many people who have had near-death experiences where they came back, and myself included. And so, yeah, they do see their friends and loved ones coming back. And I've studied near-death experiences extensively because of my own and because of other people's experiences. Your family does come to get you. You know how we talk about spirits that have become trapped here because they don't know how to cross over? Again, Dr. Kennedy, who's been doing this for 40 years, he's found out through EVPs that light that you see seems to kind of fade and disappear after a while, all right? Because you're afraid of it, you don't know what it is, you don't know you're dead, you kind of avoid it. Because you're like, I don't know what the hell that is over there, but I'm sure not going through that. Because maybe you didn't live a religious life. You didn't know what to expect when you died. I don't know. But for whatever reason, that light starts to fade as you ignore it. Again, we have free will. You don't go, okay, we'll close this down. But what people don't understand when they die is, or if they've lost that light, is they can bring it back at any time. They just have to call out for it. I believe that if you die suddenly or tragically or you weren't prepared for it, and and your loved ones weren't able to come and help you with this transition to the other side, that's why people get stuck here. And that's why your loved ones show up when you're dying slowly at home in hospice. It's to help you walk across and to say, we're going to go into that light now. And you'll go because you're with your father, you're with your mother, you're with your sister. And I think when people die suddenly, there's a much better chance for them to wind up trapped here as an earthbound spirit because no one was there to say, you see that light there? Go into that. There was just no one there. And so you didn't know what to do. And so I think that's part of that. And when these people go through the death process, they start to shut down. They start to feel peaceful. They start to feel happy. Some are even excited. They're like, I'm ready to go. I want to go now. Mm-hmm. And they're told no, another couple of hours. And they're like, oh, my friend's father just passed at home. And she said at one point his cousin came who'd been dead for 20 years. And he goes, oh, is it time? And he started running in his bed. And then he was like, I'm not going anywhere. And he's like, oh. And she didn't know what happened, but she could only guess that she realized, no, you're not leaving yet. But he started running in his bed. And so I think that's there to make sure that we come for each other. We know who we love. The only two things you get to take with you when you die are who you loved and what you learned. That's it. Nothing else goes with you. So I think that who we loved, they come together. I absolutely believe that.
You know, when my sister passed away, I think it'll be 2 years this year, I wasn't there. And my nieces were there with her. And she actually, she told the girls, she said, I'm dying. She knew she was dying. And then, of course, she saw her cousin, who she loved dearly, who had passed away years ago. And I had never heard that. I didn't know that you knew that you were going to die.
Yes, well, when you're on hospice, you typically know that it's terminal. But I think there's always that part of you that kind of rejects it because it's scary. Fear of death is like the biggest cause of our problems. Actually, in Scripture, Paul says that Satan holds the keys to the fear of death that causes people to sin. I mean, it's literally in there because fear of death is what makes us do all the horrible things we do when you get down to it. So I think that we do deny that to a certain point. But when you're in hospice, you know it's going to happen. But I think there comes a point when you realize, oh, right now, I'm going right now. And it's because the loved ones start showing up and you realize, oh, it's coming now. You know, I've been laying at home feeling sick for all this time, but that signals to you, get ready. And I think that's why they're there, because the realization is so terrifying to us. But someone's there to let us know that, yeah, you're dying, but that's not all there is. There's more. That's why I'm here to get you. So I think it's God's incredible love and mercy to send others to us so that we're not so scared. So that we realize, well, if they're here, then clearly death isn't just us winking out of existence.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think that's really important. It's all about keeping us calm and showing us the way.
I never thought about that. Even though I still don't want to die, I still am afraid to die. Even though I hear
too. I am too. Look at what I do for a living. I'm still scared of it.
Yeah, I mean, even though I heard, I just, you know what? It's just like, you just can't, even though you hear the words and people tell you, but it's still within yourself, you know, whether you want to accept it or not, and how you take it. That's what I feel. And even though I hear these words and from you and from others, it's still hard. For me, it's hard to accept. That's all.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is. It is for all of us. None of us really wants to go. And I think we all deep down worry that we're wrong, that there isn't anything. And that's what makes us scared, and I believe that's why our loved ones show up. No, there is. That's why I'm here. See, I'm here. I didn't disappear.
And
So I think that's to calm us.
I think that some people might also believe that just like some people, oh, that white light, it's your brain making you see
Right.
these lights and whatever. And they may also say, oh no, it's just your imagination, your memory of that loved one coming to see you. It has something to do with your brain.
Right. And, there was a book that I recommend to everybody by a man named Eben Alexander, E-B-E-N, Alexander. It's called A Neurosurgeon Goes to Heaven, or A Neurosurgeon Explores the Afterlife. Eben Alexander was a neurosurgeon. He was an expert in the brain, and he was an atheist. He believed exactly what you said. The near-death experiences were just lack of oxygen in the brain, hormones to calm you down for the dying process. He believed all of that until he got a particular kind of meningitis that killed him, but it made him brain dead for weeks. He was brain dead. There was, if you hooked an EEG up to his brain so that you could see the electricity moving through the brain, there was nothing. He was flat, completely brain dead. All right? So it would have been impossible for him to have seen his own body, to have seen who came to see him, to have had an extended near-death experience, and to recover from it. And he did, and he wrote about what happened, and he said, look, folks, I'm the proof. I was brain dead. It would have been impossible for my brain to produce that tunnel, for my brain to produce those feelings, for my brain to have overheard who was in my room. I had no brain. And yet, I had those experiences, and the reason I had them was because I was outside of my body. And I can't remember. It's a neurosurgeon explores heaven, something like that. But you look up his name because it's so unusual. Eben, E-B-E-N, Alexander, M.D. He's been on talk shows and he's spreading the word. Look, guys, the afterlife is real. I'm an expert. And I didn't see any of the things we were supposed to, or I saw all of the things that everybody says you see, and it would have been impossible for me to do so. And yet, and he said it's impossible for me to recover, but God sent me back. And I did. I recovered from brain death, from permanent brain death. And he's like, because he wanted me to tell you that it was real. So this is an incredible book. I highly recommend it because it blows out of the water all of those arguments against near-death experiences being fake or the result of brain chemicals.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that when we die, we have the choice of either staying on Earth or going into heaven. Now, why would you have that choice? Why don't you just go to heaven or wherever?
It's a good question because people believe that, you should be able, wouldn't God just kind of suck you up? Boom, your choice is over. But we know Lucifer rebelled in heaven, in front of God, face to face. So we have free will in heaven. We have free will at every point of our existence. That means that we can make a decision at any point in our existence, whether we're standing face to face with God or whether we're waking up in the morning and deciding whether or not to wear pants. We always have a decision. And God never takes that away from us, ever. Right? He gave us free will as a gift, and it gets us into a lot of trouble. believe me, I know, because we always choose the wrong thing. I shouldn't say always. We tend to choose the wrong thing. But God always gives us that choice, and that includes at death. Now, you can choose to stay here. Oftentimes it's a mistake because you've died so suddenly you don't know you're dead. You don't know what that light is or any of that. But we can choose to stay here for other reasons, too, for family. Now, I also need to preface this with this. I don't think that every spirit activity on earth is someone who is stuck here. All right, again, we get caught up in the afterlife being the same as it is here when we have a body. A spirit doesn't have a body. They're in a place where time isn't a straight line. That's the brain. Time is all at once. I don't want to get into quantum physics. I've been studying it for years, but that's not what time isn't. It's not, 10:21, 10:22, 10:23. That's not the way time exists in the universe. And it's not the way it is in the afterlife either. So when we die, we can go to heaven and still interact with people on earth and be in heaven. We can be in heaven and give EVPs to investigators at 5 different places on the planet at once, because the rules that apply to the body don't apply to a spirit. So here's an example. This is the analogy I use. You are swimming in a pond, all right? Mm-hmm. And you have to move in a straight line when you swim. If you're on one side, you need to get to the other side of the pond. You have to swim through the water. That's us with the body. Now, let's say you're out of the body. You're out of the water. You're on the edge of the pond. You can run around the edge and jump in at any point in the pond you want. All right, that's a spirit. Or you could go even higher up so that you're on a high cliff over the pond, and you can jump not just onto the pond, but on the areas around the pond. Right? So the further you move away from this life, the more you can affect different areas of it. And I believe, let's say your parent died, that they could be in heaven and they could be messing with you in Kentucky and your sister in New York City at the same time on the same day. And they do. Why do people get EVPs of Abraham Lincoln at his grave, at his birthplace, and at the White House? Because he's not in any of those places. He's on the other side. But a spirit, all they have to do is think about a place, and they're there. And they can be in many at the same time. So people can choose to remain here and never cross over, or they can cross over and come back here at will. Again, free will exists in the afterlife.
Now, earlier you had mentioned about there are people that are stuck here. Now, those spirits that are stuck here on Earth, how will they be that way for I know there's no time when you die, but the only thing I can think of is eternity. That's how they'll spend their time, is here on Earth. And if now there are some, now I know you've been involved in the paranormal, correct?
Oh yes, for years and years and years.
And at times when you do paranormal investigating, someone that might be a psychic that's on your team will say, "Oh yes, this person is stuck here and they need to be brought to the light."
Right.
Now, if in that case this lucky soul was lucky enough to come across a psychic that was able to bring them to the light, but how many of those souls that are stuck here on Earth that haven't been contacted by anybody to help them, what happens to them?
I actually don't. I believe that someone being stuck here is much rarer than people make it out to be. And I'm talking rare. I don't think when you go to a place and people say, there's a spirit here, their next sentence is, they're stuck here. And it's because they believe if there's a spirit here, they're here. You know, they're not someplace else and here. So first of all, I think that those psychics are incorrect. I don't think that they're necessarily stuck there. It gets kind of complicated because the afterlife is really, really strange, and because there are no rules. It could also be that there's some part of the person's soul stuck there, some aspect of the person, but the rest of them has moved on. It's almost like a residual energy that is intelligent. We tend to think of residual haunts and intelligent haunts. We have all these neat little categories, and people act as if those have been proven to be real categories. I don't think there are categories. I think that there are situations where the psychic says that only because the spirit's there. Well, we need to move them on. Well, they may not be here. You may be experiencing them here, but they're not here. So I think in a lot of cases, those psychics are wrong. I don't think there is a case where the entirety of one person's soul is stuck here. I don't think that those are as common as people think they are. And it can be even stranger than that, Noreen, because it could be possible that a part of the person stays behind. Like, there's a particular hotel, and there was a human there who hated it when people spoke loudly. No, I'm making this up.
Oh.
Hates it when people speak loudly. So if people go into that hotel and they talk loudly, then the ghost slams his hand against the wall. That's what people are hearing. And this is not unusual. This is a common paranormal story. It may even exist. He slams his hand on the wall every time people talk loud. So folks come in and they're like, we need to move him on. There's a spirit here. He's stuck. We've got to cross him into the light. And so the psychic comes in and pushes the spirit over. Look, people are complex creatures. There is no such human being where that was all they did in life, was slam their hand on the wall. What if that is also residual? What if all hauntings are really residual hauntings?
Yeah,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I heard you talk. I listened to a radio show that you had done a couple years ago, and you were discussing residual activity. And
Right.
And we've also, every time I get a chance, I will ask a guest, what about residual haunting? But you know, the thing about it is, when somebody puts that on the internet, the thing about it is, it keeps getting copied and copied and copied
Right.
and copied.
Right.
So, can you talk to us about residual haunting?
Oh, sure. Well, here's the thing about residual hauntings. We have a tendency to think that in the paranormal field, that a residual haunting is one where the same event is occurring, but it's mindless. Like it doesn't interact with its environment, like a ghost train or a ghost battlefield. You know, that's a residual haunt. Or someone who walks across the stairs at the same time at night, no matter what's happening. We tend to think that that's what a residual haunting is. It's that movie clip playing over and over and over and over again. And we tend to think that intelligent haunts are the ones in which the haunting interacts with the environment, like the people who are speaking loudly, or they get an EVP from the ghost. That's a direct answer to a question. They believe that that isn't residual, and then they believe that that is an entire person who is now here and needs to be crossed over because they got the EVP there. All right? This is what I think. I think that that could also be residual, or it could be a spirit spirit that's moved over. It's in heaven, and it's talking to them at that particular place at that particular time. All right? There's no time and space in the afterlife. It's like this. Let's say that someone in this hotel left 300 cell phones, all in different areas of this hotel. I could be standing on the moon and dial all of those cell phones at different times and talk to the people who happen to pick them up. That's what it's like with the afterlife. You get an EVP someplace, it doesn't mean that the spirit is there. It doesn't. They could be in heaven talking to you from there. Or they might not be speaking to you on that telephone. They may have no idea that there's a voicemail on that phone that they left behind at some point, some part of their consciousness that they didn't need, that got stripped away. And it's still speaking. It's still giving EVPs. It can even answer people. We have tech that can do that. But that's the part of them that hated loud voices. They don't have to hate loud voices in heaven. That part of them's moved on. We all know that our psyche can split. We can have split personalities that don't know about each other in our own brain. We may also have aspects of our brain, our personality in our life that stay in a particular location or that can continue to ping pong. Right? So we get very confused in the paranormal field, I believe, because we are too focused on it as being like it is when we're alive. I mean, remember the ancient Egyptians used to believe that you basically just went to the netherworld and they buried you with food and they buried you with money. They buried you with your poor servants that they killed and put down there with you.
Yeah, and your animals.
Look at that. Yeah, and we laugh. That's so stupid. We do the same thing. We still think about it as if it were like it is here. But there's no linear time. All right, and by linear time, I mean cause and effect and cause and effect. That's because of the way our brain processes information. Like I said, that's not even true in the physical world. There's also no place. You could be in a million different places at the same time, interacting with each of those places as if you were there in your entirety. But everybody has to remember that it's like there are a million cell phones or cell phones at all your favorite places. You're in heaven, and an investigator goes to a place that you loved. Well, there's a cell phone there. You can have a direct connection with them there. That's where you've decided that you will speak to people. And they will get you there, and they will get an intelligent you there. But the second a psychic senses someone in a place, all right, again, they're thinking like the afterlife is like here. They're speaking to us here, so all of them must be right here. We need to send them to the light. So they're in the light laughing. Because I'm here. I'm just talking to you on the phone, dude. You got to relax. I'm fine. You know? So I think that it's funny that everybody will say there's no such thing as an expert in the paranormal, and yet we have these categories, and we're like, oh, no, it's got to be one of these. How do we know?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't. You know, it could be all of those at once, or none of those, or three of them. So I think that we need to break the box open when we're thinking about the paranormal and start to really understand science and understand how strange this world is, so that we look at the next and we're like, all bets are off, and it's a crapshoot on the other side. There are no rules. It could be something we've never thought of. So we have to think like that and not pigeonhole the dead.
Now, another thing, when you're conducting an EVP session, whether it be a ghost box, I guess a seance would be the same thing as trying to communicate. How do you know that you're really talking to a spirit? How do you know? Well, my other question added to that is, could it also be a demon?
Yes. You have no way of knowing what's speaking. And that's where things get dangerous. Because I'm a medium. I'm clairaudient and clairsentient and clairvoyant. What that means is that I can see the dead, I can hear the dead in complete sentences, and I can sense their pain. You know, those are 3 different gifts, but many people have more than one of them at the same time. So someone asked me when I said, I think that Ouija boards are a bad idea for people. And they said, how is that any different than what you do? You talk to dead people. How is it different if I use a Ouija board? Why is that dangerous? How do you know you're not speaking to a demon? And I'm like, because I'm clairsentient and I can feel them. I can feel the difference. However, it's a great question. Right? Why is a Ouija board more dangerous than a ghost box or a psychic medium or a tape recorder? Mm-hmm. It's more dangerous because the Ouija board requires an attachment to your body. You hold the planchette and you have an electrical field extending out from your body by a couple of inches. The closer you get to the skin, the more you're able to tap into that electrical field. So there's actually people who think that we're moving the Ouija board with our own electricity, and that's biology. That's not mysticism or New Age. That's biology. We have an electrical field extending out from our fingertips because we have all these nerve endings there. Well, when you're barely touching the planchette or touching it lightly, all right, and it's moving, that means that spirit is using a part of your body, albeit a small part. It's almost a micro possession. So they are entering into your electricity, your nerves, your energy in order to move that planchette. They're using your energy, your body. That's what makes it dangerous.
So does that mean because that energy is using you, that they could possibly be an attachment onto you?
Right. It gives them the ability. You're giving them. All right. You're issuing an invitation. Mm-hmm. All right, we know. And here I said there are no rules about the paranormal. I'm talking about demonology. The thing about demonology is that exorcists going back 5,000 years have been studying this, and it's their knowledge and experience that we draw from. So while no one has any experience of the afterlife that they've come back and told us, that we don't have expertise in. So that I should qualify that because I just said there are no experts, and I'm telling you all this information. I just want to explain the difference. But anyway, when you issue an invitation to a demon, right, that invitation's always open. They don't have to take you up on it when you issue it. You can say, it's like saying to your friend, well, you're welcome to hang out at my house anytime. Right? When you say that to whomever, and you address whomever, or even if you say we want to talk to Bob, you're still staying out there to everyone who isn't Bob. We don't want to talk to you. So that communication is to everyone who isn't Bob also. It's still an invitation, even if you don't know, even if you know who you're trying to talk to with the Ouija board. An invitation that involves the use of your body is a huge invitation. And that's the one that enables them to creep in the most. You are saying to a spirit, here, use my fingers to communicate with me. All right? That is a tremendous danger you are offering in micro-possession. Now, it can't possess you entirely because your invitation was very limited. You can speak to me with these. So what they'll do is they'll take you up on your invitation, and then they'll make you invite them in bigger and bigger ways. They're in the house now. They'll pretend to be a child ghost.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so you see the child and you're like, oh, honey, you can stay with us forever.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's been invited. There's no rule about whether or not it lies. You see, they have no rules when it comes to what they do. They're trying to get to you, and they're trying to do it with God's rules. Remember I said choice? All right? Free will? They can't invade you without your free will. They need you to keep inviting them in bigger and bigger ways until they can take control. So that's why it's all about invitation. So you say, honey, you can stay with me. You know, you can stay here forever as long as you want. We'll take care of you. Well, now it's not a kid anymore. Now it's a big menace because you invited it all the way in. And you said, for as long as you want. And so it can always trick you into giving your free will. You have to at every point say, no, I think that this may be dangerous. I think this is a mistake. So that's why I believe Ouija boards are so dangerous. And you'll have people say, I've used Ouija boards, like 500 of them. Nothing bad has ever happened to me. Right? And there's always that caveat, yet.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
But also, why would a demon want to, let's say you've used 500 Ouija boards and nothing bad has happened. Well, the second something bad happens to you, everybody will be scared. All right? They want other people to use Ouija boards. They need people out there saying there's nothing wrong with them. Otherwise, how are they going to get into more and more people? So, of course, there are people they're going to leave alone. Because if everybody who ever used a Ouija board got a demonic presence, then nobody would use Ouija boards.
Yeah.
So they leave some alone. It's a strategy. Just like, you know, a lot of people do really horrible things that never get caught. Nothing bad ever happens to them. Well, you know, that's what inspires other people to do bad things.
You know, we have some questions in the chat room, but I just have one more question that I'd like to ask.
Sure.
How can you tell the difference between a demon and an extreme negative entity?
There are subtle differences in the environment. All right. The thing with a demon, if there is a place that a demon is present in at a particular time, that demon despises the human soul, and the human soul has a reaction to the demon. So you can be an extreme negative thought. You might feel nauseous. You might feel sapped of energy. You feel depressed. You might get angry, and you're like, oh, that's weird. But you shake it off. When you're in the presence of a demonic spirit, your soul vomits. That's really the only thing I can explain is the best way to put it. Your soul just vomits. It wants out of there. You can't even be in the place without feeling like you're being crushed inside. It's like walking into the bowels of hell. I describe that feeling of the Dementors. It's sucking out of you. It's sucking the life, the hope. You feel that when you go into a place with a demonic entity. You smell things that smell like trash, feces, sulfur.
Yeah.
There's a complete difference. The sulfur is because that's the smell you get. You also get that smell if you're very close to very strong power wires. It's because they're in the room and they actually cause the molecules into the room to excite and pop as if there's energy there. So you'll get a sulfur smell whenever there's some kind of movement in and out of this realm, I believe. because there are sulfur smells with other things. But there is such a stark difference, and I can tell people, they're like, well, I wasn't sure if it was a demon. I said, stop there, it wasn't. When you have an experience where it is, you will never forget about it. If you're not sure, it wasn't. That's what I tell everybody. There is a complete difference when you're in the presence of pure evil than any other thing you'll ever be in the presence of.
Okay, I have, let me see, I'm copying the questions. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat room. And I'm going to try and put them onto my computer here so I can start asking. Okay, let me see. There was something else I wanted to know. Oh, I want to ask you too. You know, when people are buried, and something happened to me years ago, and that's when I made a decision. I will never be buried in the ground. It scares the heck out of me, because why are the spirits there at a cemetery? Now, we had gone to Bodie, and it's a haunted, a ghost town in California, in Bodie, California. And when we went up to the cemetery, and we had our voice recorders, and of course we didn't hear any of this till we played it back. And we asked if there was anybody here, and then continued on to say, could you give us your name? Please let us know if anybody's here. Can you please communicate with us? And then when we got back to the hotel, the little boy's voice came on the recorder and said, I'm here. I'm down here. And then he answered to another question. He said, I told you, I'm down here. And that scared the heck out of me. I mean, was he stuck in the ground, or was he just doing that?
You know what, though, for a little kid on the other side, yeah, he was down there. When they're speaking, they may not be there, remember? So that may be a part of him that, stayed by where he is in the ground, but I don't think he was actually down there.
Oh, my God.
If you're a little kid on the other side, and you're like, no, I'm down here, because he may be viewing you from that position, or he may also be messing with you.
Oh.
They have senses of humor. I've had spirits do that. I've had them tell me jokes, and I just burst out laughing, because while I was doing a reading, they've said something. One time a ghost, we asked it its name, and it said Casper.
Oh, okay,
I was
now.
like, that is not your name. That is not your name. So he may have just been messing with you.
Oh, my God, I'm telling you, that made me sick. I said, I told my family, there's no way in heck do I want to be buried in the ground. You're putting me in a urn, and you're keeping me in the living room. I don't care where you keep me, but do not put me in the ground. Oh my goodness.
That is
awesome. Okay, so gosh, we're starting to get a lot of questions, and I had so many myself to ask you. Hold on, let me start. Okay. All right, hold on. All right, so let me see. I think let me start with. Okay, so question: why are there trapped spirits held by more power, evil entity?
That I have seen, and where there's a spirit in a place that appears to be trapped by something that's keeping it there. I've encountered the same thing, and it could be one of two things. It could be that they're physically present, and again, it could be some part of the person has been tied up to that spirit. But I've seen that. I've seen where one spirit was being dominated by another, Now, I'm not sure how that works with, like, spirits visiting. That would be a case where they would have to be actually there. And again, they may not be all of them there. That may be a small part of one person and another more powerful entity. But it is possible for a dominant or a demonic force to trap a soul. It is possible. Let's say someone dies in a place where there is an evil entity, all right, and that person did not go into the light. That person decided to stay. It isn't possible for something to snatch you out of God's hand and let you, gotta choose it. But it may have been that attachment was with that person in life. And when they passed, the attachment held on. I've seen that happen before, too. It is possible when you have an attachment. I think that those cases may have been someone who was under a state of obsession or oppression when they died, so that the soul was stuck here because the attachment got to hold on to them. And in that case, you do need to free them. But I think it is entirely possible that you can have a demonic attachment, and when you die, it's almost like they grab your ankle. You can't go because they've attached themselves not to your body, to your soul. And so you need to be separated from them in order for you to move on. It's much easier in this life than it is in the next. But some process has to occur to get you out of their grasp. So I think that that's what causes that.
I know you talked about demons smelling like sulfur, but we do have a question from River Culver. He wants to know why if hell has no fire, then why do they smell like sulfur?
Well, I had just mentioned that, all right, when something moves in and out of this realm, you will get the scent of sulfur. All right, you will get the scent of sulfur because it's part of that sort of ozone smell. Now, the thing with sulfur, though, you have to understand is if hell has no fire, why do they smell like sulfur? Because we think hell has fire. The thing about demons is they're pure spirits, all right? They don't have bodies. They're not in an actual fire. Right? Spirits have no bodies, so there's nothing to give off that sulfur smell if they don't have a body, because they were angels. Angels are pure spirits. Demons used to be angels. They're still angels. They still retain that nature, but they're fallen angels now. And so they know that fire is what you think of when you think of the demonic. And so they make sure you smell what you think you're going to smell when they're around. It's one of the things that's triggered in your mind. All right, there's not an actual smell. If there were a way to test the air for a smell in the air, you wouldn't see anything. It's occurring in your mind. All of our senses are in our mind. They're triggering that in you. Maybe it's a built-in warning we have for them, but also it's a psychological tactic. I'm here. Now you know what I am. Now you better run.
Well,
that type of thing.
You know, years ago, we went to a haunted town, Sutter Creek, and we went to the Sutter Creek Hotel, and we had lunch. My sister and our husbands, and we were sitting there waiting to get waited on, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, the smell of sulfur. It was horrible, and it was just at our table. And we all smelt it. What was that all about?
Well, again, it was something in you being triggered. If it's only at your table, then it's not a smell. The smell travels. It's not in the air. All right? It's in the brain. You're smelling sulfur. I don't know. What would be interesting is an experiment is if it is a warning in us, in our souls, in our minds, that something's near. Gas doesn't smell. Natural gas, it's odorless.
Right.
They add an artificial smell to it so you'll know it's there. Perhaps that's what God's given us as a warning, as a trigger, that one of them is there. That in our minds, the smell of sulfur comes to us. In our mind, our soul is being warned they're there. I actually, as I'm saying it, I think that makes more sense than them actually having the smells about them, because remember, their whole thing is to trick us into thinking there's something harmless. All right? Why would they want to advertise what they are until they're ready? It's got to be some innate warning signal in us that that's what's near, and we should never ignore that.
We have another question from Pretty Paranormal. As someone who communicates with spirits, can I help them cross over, and if so, how? I'm always being asked to help them to the light.
If you're being asked to help someone, then all you need to do is remind them that they can call the light back at any point. I mean, the only people who know better about they're dead. They know better about being dead than we do. If you encounter someone who has asked your help, all you need to do is call on God, their family members, to come get them, that they're ready now, and they will. That's the process. You basically just tell them that the light is there at any point if they want it. And then their family and loved ones will come and get them, and they cross over. It's just a matter of them remembering. All right, when you tell them you had the power to do this all along, it's like they were wearing the ruby slippers. They just didn't know that that's what they had to do. And so all you have to do is remind them, hold them in prayer, ask God to send their loved ones to them, ask God to open up that white light, and then they'll cross over. Psychics don't have as many as have told me that they can. It's not them who are opening heaven. We don't have that power. We're asking for heaven to be open for that person right then and there. And so that's how you do it.
All right. I have a question by the same person, but by Mama Joe. So she wants to know, once a demon has marked you, or can a demon mark you? And can they also do that not only with adults but with children as well? And if they do, if that is what they do, is there something that you can do to undo that?
I think that one of the things we do is give demons way too much credit and way too much power. The worst thing you can do when it comes to the demonic is give them credit for everything, because it puffs their pride and it makes them more interested in doing things. You have to sort of view things as, well, that sucked, and just kind of move on. We get kind of caught up in this, bad things keep happening. It's got to be demonic. I've got to remove the demon from this. Well, you just created for yourself an impossible task. So we've got to stop giving them so much credit and being convinced that they're in our lives and it's permanent and they've taken over. So that's the first thing. The first thing I tell everybody to try is to stop giving them so much credit. Mm-hmm. All right? People will report that they're going through absolute hell because their child was marked by a demon. I do not think demons do not mark people in the way that we believe. They don't. They don't pick someone and say they're mine and I'm just going to start attacking them. That's not the way it works. However, that being said, there are certain people, demons know the future. Remember, there's no time on the other side. They know what's coming for you. They know what you're going to accomplish and what you're going to do. Because they know that, there are certain people they kind of want to derail. I was one of them. They knew I was going to be a priest. There are other people who became priests, and almost everyone will tell you, yeah, I had some really scary stuff happen in my life, and it was bizarre. It's always an attempt to stop you from doing the good you're going to do. There are certain people, the second they're born, those demons know exactly what they're going to do with their life. They know how many people they're going to bring to God. They know how many people they're going to save from their situations. And so they want that person derailed. They want to get them addicted to things. They want to get them in the wrong crowd. They want them to make choices that will make that doing good impossible. So they don't mark us. They don't choose us. God chooses us, and God marks us, and they don't like that. And so that sort of puts a target on you sometimes. Now, that being said, you need to stop giving them so much power. I will give them credit for things that they absolutely did not do. And what happens when you give people credit for shit that they didn't cause? They get cocky, and they grow. You give them more power in your life by giving them credit for every little broken bone and bad weather that comes along. I started doing that at one point in my life. Someone who is an exorcist came to me and said, you gotta stop doing that. And his mentor, who was also an exorcist in the 90s, had told him, you gotta stop doing that. Don't give them any credit. And you know what? Life is so much better now. Because it's really depressing to think that a demon's got its hold on you. It's a hopeless situation. Don't put yourself in it. They don't. They may cause a problem here and there, but you got to just let problems happen and not give them credit for them. And everything will change.
I have a question. I know somebody from way back that's been involved in the paranormal, and God only knows what else. Used the Ouija board for years, and this person got an attachment, and I know for a fact that some shamans and whatever have tried to clear this person, and the attachment never left. And this person actually got like gifts, mediumship type gifts that they never had before. They could kind of like read your mind. They could anyway, they got gifts. Let me just say they got gifts that they never had. They've got powers that they never had before. And I don't believe this person wants that attachment to leave them. And so what's going to happen years down the road with this attachment still there? And I don't know if it's demonic. I don't know what it is.
If the attachment remains, then I believe, and this is just my theory, I believe you end up with an earthbound spirit that has another force trapping them. And then you have to help them at that point, and it's much more difficult. Anything that needs to be done for your soul is easier to do while you're in a body. It becomes much more difficult to do when you're just a soul. So, yeah, I think that they're going to have a situation where if they don't die and decide that they don't want to be with God because they'd have more power not being with Him, that's going to be a problem for them. They could also wind up being someone trapped here by an entity that won't let them go.
Okay. All right, we have at home Joker SDN. As a budding medium, how can I tell the difference between my imagination and a spirit? And she says, This person says, by the way, I intend to becoming a demonologist.
Okay. How to tell a budding spirit from your imagination is actually a really neat question, because that's a hard thing for any medium who's starting out. The thing is, when you're the one who's trying to make it happen, it'll feel like you're trying to make it happen. If you're sitting, for instance, in a chair and you're trying to contact, you've got someone across from you, a friend you're practicing on, and they want to talk to their mother, you first should go with your first instinct. The first thing you hear is usually from them. But what happens is it's faint and you can't grab it, or you're like, that couldn't be it, and so you then listen for the next thing, and that's you. You have to learn the feeling you get when you're trying too hard. There's a difference in feeling between when the Spirit's actually speaking and when you are. The one way to know is that when the Spirit's speaking to you, then it's fainter. It's a little harder to grasp. It's like a thought that's nebulous. It almost feels like that sensation you get when you're trying to remember something you know, but it's not coming to you at that moment. It feels more like that when it's a spirit. When it's you, it's a very clear, loud thing. Roses, a car, that's when it's you. When you hear kind of like, and you're like, wait, what? Is that Monday? That's the impression I got. Then it's them. Until that gets louder and you start to really know the difference between what you sound like and what they sound like.
All right, now this question, it's from Carrie Castaneda and Janet W. And I'm combining these both. Okay, now Janet is particularly wants to know who created. Okay, they both want to know who created God, who wrote the Bible, and Janet said that she's kind of gave up on God. So this was why she was asking this question. And where does God come from?
All right. Well, they're kind of nonsensical questions. I don't mean nonsense. They're nonsensical in that there is no answer, because in our minds we go through this cause and effect, like this caused that, and we keep going back, and we think that this line of causation is eternal. Like, if there's a God, then what created God? Right? When we're saying that, in our minds, we're thinking in terms of infinity. Like, there always has to be another creator, but that's impossible. At some point, logically, you get to the uncaused cause. All right? The thing that started all causation, because something had to have started all of this cause and effect. That was not itself started, and that's God. And so there is no creator past God. There is nothing that created God, because then the question that comes, what created the creator of God? And what created that creator? That's not how it works. It's not infinity going on. At one point, logically, there has to be something that started the whole thing, and that's God. There has to be the first uncaused cause, the first uncreated creator, and that's God. That comes before all others. So that mindset that there's something going on into infinity is illogical. That couldn't be possible. There has to come a point when there's something that wasn't created that created everything else. When there's something that wasn't caused that started things to be caused. And so that's what God is. When they ask who wrote the Bible, human beings wrote the Bible under the inspiration of God. and they wrote it at different times and in different places. And yet the Bible coheres logically together because they were under the inspiration of God. See, I know that they're asking these questions because they have given up on God. And these are kind of the questions you ask when you want the person you're asking to realize that they're wrong, that there is no God. The reason we tend to give up on God, and we've all done it, and it makes sense. It makes sense to give up on the idea of God. The reason we do is because we've just had too much suffering. Too many bad things have happened to us, and it's caused us to give up on the idea that there is an all-powerful, all-loving God out there. Because if God is all-loving, he can't be all-powerful, because then he'd stop bad things from happening. If God is all-powerful, he can't be all-loving, because then he'd stop bad things from happening. What people forget, again, is free will. Right? God gave us all choices. And the fact of the matter is, free will creates a certain amount of randomness in human life. It creates uncertainty. Right? God did not have your life planned out to the letter for you. We often think, oh, I got sick, it's part of God's plan. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. God does not cause suffering. He doesn't. Other people's decisions cause suffering. Our decisions cause suffering. God doesn't cause suffering. It's like we give up the responsibility of ourselves and other people and put it on God. And we can't do that, but neither can we say God is in charge of everything. If he's sending me this suffering, then I must need it somehow. No, he didn't want you to suffer. You suffered because people are constantly making dumbass and negligent decisions, and they create this chain of causality that hurts you. That drunk driver that hit that other guy that then hit you, all right, that wasn't God. There was a guy who sat down and decided to drink and drive. God didn't make him do that. He made that decision. God did not send that suffering to you. But it gives us the illusion of control to believe that God sends us suffering to teach us a lesson. Because then if I'm a really, really good person, I always do what God wants me to, then I won't suffer. It's a way for us to pretend we have control. And we pass it on to others and teach them that it's a way to believe we have control. We would rather believe that we are unlovable than believe that life is uncertain. But life is uncertain. You cannot guarantee that nothing bad will happen to you or the people you love. It's completely random from our position here. God cries with us. That was the message of the cross. God doesn't want us to suffer, but we cause suffering with our decisions, even accidental ones. We cause suffering.
Yeah.
And God cries with us.
Oh my
He doesn't want it to happen, but to stop the suffering, God would have to remove free will. He would have to take away your entire personality. He would have to end who you are, and make you do the things that he wants you to do. You wouldn't be you. You are you because of your unique experience. You're you because you have preferences that you like, things that you prefer over other things. That's what makes you who you are. And to take away your free will would take away you. So which would you rather be? A puppet or live in an uncertain world where we can have suffering? So we have to get out of this mindset that God will send us these horrible things so that we'll learn, we'll be a better person, we'll be stronger. Because of course we give up on God. That's a sadistic God. And it's not the God that I believe in, know with love, or who loves me. My God hangs on that cross and cries for what I go through, because he went through it too. I have a God who knows exactly what it's like to be human and to have horrible things happen to you. And so it breaks his heart when these things happen to me, and he comforts me and takes care of me, but he sure as hell didn't send it. And I think that's what causes us to give up on God.
Well,
and we need to find him again, because he's the one who will uphold us.
Well, with all these horrible things that go on in our world, with the child abuse and animal abuse that is just out of control. I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. And we all pray, why, God? Why can't you stop this from happening?
Right. And that's why I tell people what they think I'll judge them for not believing in God, or for having decided he's not there. And I actually have met very few people who are real atheists. Most of the people I've met do believe in God. They just hate the God they believe in. That's why they get so angry at believers. But it makes sense to me. It makes perfect sense to me why people would give up on God. And it's often because they just decided that he couldn't love them if he wouldn't stop all these things from happening. But when I explain it like this, I think it helps a little bit, because we do sit down and go, yeah, like 90% of what happens to me is because of other people's decisions. And if he took away, like, was constantly blocking other people's decisions from hurting us, it would end in him controlling us and taking away our personality, because that's the end result. So
but what about
that's the world we have.
But what about the suffering with these countries that have no water and they're starving? I mean, it wasn't their fault. They didn't. I don't think they had free will to make that happen, and they're suffering horribly.
And they're suffering because the rest of us aren't doing anything for them. That's our choice.
But how can you?
They're living in an area where there's no clean water, and aid isn't getting to them. And that's not an isolated situation. Aid does come in. The government in many of those places, especially the countries in Africa, confiscates the aid and keeps it for themselves. They don't distribute it to the people. There are forms of sin, like there's personal sin, what I would do to you or something, but then there's corporate sin and original sin. These are systems that are completely unjust. I mean, if everybody decided that they were all going to stop being multi-billionaires, then, and started making sure that everybody had what they need, then we wouldn't have this suffering. But nobody's willing to really do that. We would have to change the entire world system in order for that stuff to stop happening. And everybody would have to agree to that, and nobody's going to. So while it looks like it's this isolated situation and this horrible thing is happening, and that sort of blasts this theory of choice out of the water, it actually doesn't. That's a choice too. There's enough room in the United States for the whole world to live and still have plenty of space. There's enough wealth in the world for everybody to live a middle-class life. Why don't they? Because the system is set up so that 80% of the world, 20% of the world owns 80% of the resources. And so it's set up that way. That's not their fault. It's not your fault, Noreen. It's not my fault. It's a system that's been set up so that resources are uneven. But that system would be gotten rid of if everybody chose and said it would be okay for me to have less if they had more. It would be okay to distribute this wealth to the people who are starving, but we're going to keep it. And that's what happened. It's still a sort of choice instead. And there's nothing, we get caught in these cycles. And what would stop it? Well, we could get the government to go in there and kick the other government's ass and make them deliver those goods, but then the UN would say something, and then we get in trouble and someone could come in and invade us. It's what we call a corporate sin. It's an unjust system that is someone's fault, but it's the fault of a very few, the fault of a group of people who have all the power. And it's almost impossible for one person to stand up and change. It has happened, but it's very difficult, not until all of us stand up together and say we're not going to put up with this anymore will it change. But it could if we all did, but we can't. There's not enough of us. You see, it's still a choice. It's not an individual choice. It would involve a lot of people, but it's still choice.
Wow. April and Annie want to know about reincarnation. What is your thought on that?
I actually do believe in reincarnation. And in the United States Old Catholic Church, reincarnation is not a dogma of the church. I believe that it's in Scripture, actually. And I know it's in Scripture because I also know that the Jews believed in a form of reincarnation as well. In the Gospel of John, there is a famous story of the man born blind. Jesus encounters the man born blind, and he heals him. He's questioned by the Sanhedrin. He comes to believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Well, when the apostles see the man born blind, they ask Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus said, neither. Is for the glory of God. Now, who sinned, this man or his parents? He was born blind. There's no concept of sin in the womb, so when could he have possibly sinned in another life? That he was born blind. And so it is intimated in Scripture. And Hasidic Jews believe in reincarnation. It's part of the Kabbalistic system and the Kabbalah, where there are 5 stages of the soul, and you move through them. Once you achieve one stage, you're born into the next stage, and you retain knowledge of the previous ones until you become almost an avatar. And when you're an avatar, people in other stages of their soul's journey, just coming into contact you, they can get elevated a stage. It's the neatest thing. I happen to believe in reincarnation. I've actually done hypnosis. To go back, my friend Dr. Chuck Kennedy is a licensed hypnotist and has done thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours of past life regression. And he did one on me on the air on one of our radio shows, and that was really interesting. But I know that I've been here for quite a while, and I do believe in reincarnation. It's absolutely consistent with Christian theology, and I do not believe that everybody is reincarnated. I don't, and I don't believe that we always have a choice of where we're going. I think that God asks us. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I believe we always have the choice to come back or to stay, and we can accept assignments or not. A lot of people like to have reincarnation without God, that they meet with their soul group, and then they all decide they're going to be different people, and then they're reborn. I think that God has a hand in that. You know, you don't all decide what your soul is going to learn. I think that God has a more direct hand in that I think that last time you were a tad too arrogant, and I think that you need to learn. So you're going to be born in a country where arrogance is going to be a bit of a problem for you, or that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But I do believe in reincarnation. I just don't think that it's everybody and it's constant. And also, when you take away that element of time, it gets much more interesting, because remember, there is no time. There's no linear time. So it's not like you have a life that ends in 1826 and now you have to be reborn after 1826. You can be several different people in the same timeline. You could go backwards or forwards. You might have memories of the future. And that's what deja vu is. Maybe that's what twin souls are. It's you in another incarnation. It gets really interesting if we just get rid of the whole time-space thing. But yeah, I do believe in it. I probably have a completely different version of it than most people, because I do believe in the missionary position of reincarnation, where you're given a mission, and your mission is very particular, and you can go or you cannot go, but you don't decide the details of everything with a group of friends. I don't believe that. You do come back with the same group, and you may be in different positions, but I believe that God has a much more direct hand in it. But I also believe that you can be different people in the same time period, and you can know yourself. I think it gets really neat when you add that element.
When you want to be reincarnated and then come back, you come back at the current time, or can you go back and to say, I want to relive the 50s or the 60s?
Yeah, absolutely. You could be 6 different people in that timeline. I believe you can do that. There's no reason why you can't. When you leave the body, you leave the time stream, and you can jump back in at any point.
Oh.
So, I mean, I have memories of being a soldier in Vietnam, but I also have memories of being kind of a drifter in this country at the same time. I remember being an old person at the same time. You know, so I think, and then I've met other people who were banging their head against the wall about these weird memories of being a mother and a daughter, but the same people, a same mother to the same daughter. And they're like, it made no friggin' sense until you said that. And I'm like, oh my God. So again, we got to break this box open of the afterlife is like it is here. If you really liked the 50s, you know, maybe you went back 5 or 6 times. I have this affinity for the 60s, but from 100 different angles. I have the same affinity for the 1800s, but from 100 different angles in different places in America, in different times, and different... It's all possible. There's no time. You step out of the pond, you walk around the edge, you jump in the same place in different places. Doesn't matter. So when you think about that, then reincarnation gets all kinds of messed up and fun.
Oh my! I never heard that before. I just assumed that if there was reincarnation, that you would reincarnate at the current time that was happening, that, you know, that followed your life. And I don't know.
But the linear time is a construct of the brain. It doesn't exist. I mean, it doesn't work that way in this universe. And once we leave the timeline, we can jump back in at any point. I mean, I'm just talking about plain physics. That's the way physics works. If you're not in linear time, you can jump into linear time at any point. That's what all of these theories of time travel have been working on. And it's absolutely possible. I mean, right now, in this reality, in this universe, while we're in our bodies, there are electrons traveling backwards in time. There are particles traveling backwards in time because we want them to, because the observer looked at them and said, I'd really rather they were awake. And so that particle collapses, travels backwards in time, and becomes a wave, so that it is a wave when you look at it. As it is now, there's no such thing as linear time. Why would there be when we die? It'd be, even more less rules. So, yeah, you can absolutely come back at any time. I've met other people who have thought the same thing, who studied physics, and were like, oh, yeah, of course you could. So, yeah, if you think about it like that, again, you got to get rid of this whole time construct, and once you do, it just explodes the possibilities for the paranormal, but we're still thinking that there is like here, and it's not.
I have a question. We've got more questions, but I have one that's been bothering me for a long time. When I was really young, I went to have a psychic reading, and she was a young girl. You know how you just walk into one of these buildings, and they, because they say, oh, psychic readings, and this. Yeah. So I had the psychic reading done, and she told me when I was gonna die. And I know I used to go to other psychics years after, and none of them ever said they knew when I was gonna die. And supposedly they say they're not supposed to tell you that. But this one young girl in my 20s told me when I was gonna die. Is that possible for them to know that?
I don't think so. All right. I have heard of people doing that and having been accurate, but I don't think so. If it's, here's the thing, when they were accurate, it was some horrible, tragic accident. So I think that they saw the accident, and they predicted the accident, and they said, and that's what's going to kill you. But I don't think that that's how it works. I honestly don't. I've met people where I knew that something was coming up that would be life endangering. I didn't know if they were going to pop off at that point. I've known people who had conditions that could kill them. I didn't know they were going to. And I think that that's what the psychics see when they're accurate. They see that there's a moment that's life-threatening that will come at this point in your life. I think they're guessing at whether or not it will take you.
Yeah, she just blurted out. While she was doing the reading, and she goes, "Oh, and you're going to die at this age." That's what she said. And so, if that's the case, I don't have long to live, and I'm not ready to go.
That's horrible. I think that even if you could do that, you shouldn't. I've asked never to be shown that if it's possible, but I only believe that what they're sensing is a life-threatening situation, and that they're declaring that it will kill you. I don't think that they can sense the date of your death. I think that that's something that only you and God know. Honestly, and what I mean before you came here. You told God, when you're there, you don't really want to be here. It's like being in a septic tank compared to being up above and showered. I mean, it's completely different. Having a body, it's horrible. It's painful. You're here with all these people hurting you. It's not a place you want to be. So we tell God, you know what, when I get there, I'm not going to remember how awesome it is here, so could you just take me at this age, or could you take me as soon as my mission's done? And he'll say, okay. But then we forget. So only God knows the time of our death. Again, I think what psychics are sensing, and this is based on a lot of the research we've done with Project Psi and how the brain works for psychics while they're doing readings. I think that we sense the energy of a life-threatening situation, and then we're just like, okay, that's when it's going to happen, but that may not be the case.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Starry Night. She wants to know, do you believe in generational sin?
No, not in the sense that you're punished for your grandparents' sins. However, we all know that in practicality, that kind of carries itself out sometimes. It's not a God thing. It's not a spiritual thing. It's not a punishment. It's because, you know what? Your grandfather was an alcoholic and abusive, and your father grew up in that situation, and so he became an alcoholic and abusive, and you grew up in that situation, so you become an alcoholic and abusive. I think that in that case, yeah, you can see that, and we tend to ascribe that more to biology, but, you know, it's also addiction. It's a form of sin, and so those generational, decisions have consequences that then carry them through generations. But I do not believe we are punished spiritually for the things that our previous generations did.
All right, now we have a Maria Arvellaro. She wants to know, I want to ask, what is it that makes people commit suicide? Are they demons? Because when I feel people on the other side, I feel this darkness when I feel someone who has committed suicide, and why?
That's a really good question. No, demons don't cause us to commit suicide. The suicide itself is what causes the darkness you feel. All right, and here's the thing. We commit suicide for a myriad of reasons. Nobody commits suicide because they want to die. They commit suicide because they want to end the pain. And it seems like that's really the only thing that's going to do it. The thing that we don't think of is the other side, that there will be a consequence to that action. And religiously, they used to teach that suicide was such a grave sin that the person was automatically sent to hell, and their body was buried at a crossroads so that they could never have peace because people were traveling over their bodies constantly. It was a horrible, horrible belief system 600-700 years ago. We've come a long way since then. We understand mental illness. We understand that people, constant traumatic experience can warp us, right? It warps our brain. And sometimes our brains are misfiring anyway, and we're suffering from depression. And that can spur us to kill ourselves, right? To take our own life. The act of committing suicide scars the soul. It hurts the soul, so that I'm not saying you go to hell. You don't, because at the last minute, you really wanted to change your mind, and oftentimes it was too late. And also because, again, you're not doing it to die. You're doing it to end the pain. So what you feel is actually just the aftermath of the suicide. And again, remember, you may be feeling the residual energy of that person and not the person who may have moved on. I've had experiences with suicides who were ready to pass over but were now haunting their relatives because they wanted forgiveness. It was the last step. I've spoken to other psychics who have said that when someone commits suicide, they spend a long time in the sort of spirit hospital, that place where they're made well, or purgatory. It's not a punishment. It's because the soul's act of destroying the body, they're connected. It has completely scarred itself, and it needs a very long time of healing. It needs to work off the damage it did to others. A suicide hurts those left behind more than it hurts the suicide, always. And so they, after death, have to feel the consequences of that pain and anger and guilt that they left in the survivors. And so they're dealing with that at that moment. That's part of their purgation. they have to understand their action, and so they feel the guilt, anger, and pain of others, and that's also why you sense darkness around them. They don't stay in that condition. They continue to work through it, and they eventually go to heaven. And you want to talk about reincarnation, they go right back. You will come back and come back and come back until you can deal with that without killing yourself. Wow. Because it does so much damage to others. But that's what I think is going on with suicide.
All right. We're starting to run out of time. I have 2 questions that I'll ask, and then that's it. Let's see. From Aaron Kemp, what is the best way what is the best thing to use to protect oneself? Sage, cedar, etc.
Well, I actually I use exorcist cross and exorcist medals. I use saints. The St. Benedict medal or the St. Benedict cross. And I sell these at my store, and this isn't a commercial for them, but if you're looking for one, I do sell them very cheaply, and I bless them before I ship them so you can get them blessed, because a lot of people look for them. And that's my old Catholic catalog.com, CATALOG.com. But anyway, I use those when they're blessed because St. Benedict was one of the greatest exorcists of the church after Christ. And on the cross is written the exorcism prayer that was passed on from Christ and the apostles. And it's on there in its initials. The medal has a lot of meaning and significance, and the exorcist cross is a crucifix with the medal in it. Now, when it's blessed, that's what I prefer. That is used in every Roman Catholic exorcism ever performed around the world. And the chief exorcist in Rome, Gabriel Amorth, said that of the 3 things that Satan is absolutely terrified of, the exorcist medal is one of them. So I've always used that. Other people who have a more Native American bent will use symbols from Native American culture. Here's the thing. You use the thing that you have the most faith in, all right? So don't borrow something from another culture if you're not feeling like if you don't feel like the most secure with that, like that's the thing that you would take into a battle. You have to look around for something that you have faith in, because this isn't magic, all right? Remember, you're not stronger than a demon. Demon's much stronger than you. They're stronger, they're smarter, they're older, they know the future. You think you're a good one going up against them, you're dead wrong. And dead, I should emphasize, you're dead wrong. It's God who exorcises them. It's God who expels them. And you need to know that you have God on your side and that you're authorized to do so, because they only respond to the authority of God, not to your authority. You're beneath them. So you need to use the thing that invokes God for you the most powerfully. And whatever that happens to be, that's your protection. It has a lot to do with what you put your faith in and the way in which God comes through for you. So I use the exorcist cross. That's who I am. That's where I'm at. And that's what I use. But you've got to find something for you that you think invokes the authority of God through you, and that's your best protection.
All right, one more question. This is from Joker SDN. He says, what of homosexuality? And that's all he said.
What of it?
Yeah.
No, I say that because I know what he's asking. I'm Catholic. I am not Roman Catholic. I'm Old Catholic. I'm part of the United States Old Catholic Church. We reject all doctrines of exclusion. So everyone is called to every sacrament, regardless of race, gender identification, sexual orientation, or marital status. My first wedding was 2 women. and I was so excited that that was the first wedding I performed. My Archbishop is openly gay, and so are many of the bishops and priests in the old Catholic Church. I believe that God, here's the thing, you don't fall in love with body parts, you fall in love with hearts and minds and souls. Doesn't matter what body they have, you've fallen in love with the person. It's the purest kind of love. And it's true of heterosexuals, it's true of homosexuals. And if that's the person you've fallen in love with, then God bless you. Get married. You can get ordained in our church, usocc.org. I'm thrilled when someone comes and says, I didn't know I could be a priest, I'm gay. And I'm like, cool, come with us. Because we reject no one for any reason. I'm a woman and I'm a priest. We reject no one. We're like Christ. Christ loved everybody. It was come as you are, WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. And that's the way we are. Come as you are. And because we are called by Christ, we're called to love you, no matter what. And so that's my take on homosexuality. If you want information about the verses in the Bible that seem to be against homosexuality, and they're not, there's a great website called gaychristians101.com. gaychristians101.com. Fantastic resource for apologetics about the Bible and homosexuality. It's excellent, so check them out.
Do you know what? I've already gone over my 2 hours. The only reason I stay under 2 hours is so I can edit the show, because I always do shout outs at the end of the show, and some people want to put their show on their website, and so now they're going to get the shout outs because I can't edit it out. So do you have a few more minutes for a couple of other questions? Are you in a hurry to go?
Well, I actually, it's after 10 and I get up at 5 a.m.
Oh.
So why don't we do like another 2 questions, and then everyone message me on Facebook. I answer everyone's questions in the order I get them. I always answer them if you're willing to wait a couple days because I'm busy. But my name is with a K, Kristina Rake, R-A-K-E. So if I don't get to answer your question tonight, message me and I will absolutely answer it. I will. I always do. So I can take actually, I could take like one more question.
Oh,
but like I said, I get up at 5 a.m.
Oh, no, that's okay.
So,
it was just me asking a question because with you being in the paranormal, and I don't know if you've heard this or not, and this is the thing that's going around now, and with so many people I've heard this from, especially with those that have other guests that have been on my show. But I am showing your book, and the book can be purchased at Amazon.com. And everybody, if you go to my channel right now, underneath this video, I have all of the Reverend Mother's website links. They're all there for you to connect to. So I have them all there. I have her bio. Everything is down there on the about, and that's where you can get all her websites. Okay, it's connected. It's linked. Just all you have to do is go to that. Oh, they want to know. Wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, they want you to come back again. They want you to come back.
If we want to do, I'm doing an Ask Me Anything on June 25th at the Rhodes Hotel because people like to ask questions. I'm always happy to answer them. If you want to schedule me again for folks to just write in questions, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to get a phone system. If not, we'll just do it the way we're doing now, where my mod, he puts the questions into Facebook and I just open them up. That seemed to be working tonight, okay?
That's fine.
Okay, I'll connect with you then to have another show in July or August. Would that work?
Oh, that'd be fine. That'd be perfect.
Okay. I want to have a subject, though. I mean, I know they have questions, but I also want to talk about something in the before they do the questions and answer thing. But
oh, sure, we'll figure something out.
thank you so much for coming on the show. It was such a pleasure to talk with you and to meet with you. You're just a joy to have on the show, and the viewers are they just love you.
Oh, thank you, everyone. I'm really happy to do it. I was so happy when you asked, and this is a lot of fun, so we'll definitely try it again, and then start stacking up your questions and have them ready. And I'll answer as many as I can, because if we do it in the summer, my kids don't have school in the morning, so I can stay up late like a big girl, and we can do more.
So what nights what night's better for you?
If we did a weekend night, like a Friday night or Saturday night, in the summer, any night is fine. But the kids are in school through June, so that's when I have to get up at 5 in the morning because I have to get my daughter ready and everything.
So July would be okay then for Thursday night?
Yeah, any day, yeah. Thursday in July is fine.
Oh, great. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show tonight. It was an honor and a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much, and I will be in touch with you for another date. I'll send, I have my calendar with me, and I'll send you a couple of dates.
Oh, perfect. And thank you for being so gracious, and thank you, everyone, for your questions. They were awesome. I look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Oh, thank you so much. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, hey, everybody. I'm glad you liked the show. Oh, yes. And I hope you really liked the show. She was a wonderful guest. Something really different that we've never done before. And thanks, everybody, for staying with me. And then for your questions. So I will set up another show with her in July. Also, I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day, and I will have my corned beef and cabbage tomorrow. And hey, oh gosh, don't forget Monday with Carissa Fleck and Phil Siracusa, episode 2 of the Horsefly Chronicles experiment. Don't forget about that, and I'll be posting. Yes. And I see Dave came into the show. So everybody, thank you so much. I'm already over my 2 hours. So you want me to do some shout outs? Oh gosh, and don't forget, oh my God, guess what? My show next Thursday, it actually was the Litchfield Triangle, but what it is a haunted house that this family lives in. And it's an old farmhouse in New England. And my guest is Paul Eno. I've had him several times on the show. I just love Paul. And he's coming on the show, and we're going to talk about this house. And guess what? It's going to be over Skype with video, and he is going to be actually at the haunted house with the homeowner. So I'm really, this includes aliens, UFOs, and all kinds of weird things are going on. And the haunted house, the farmhouse, happens to be in this Litchfield Triangle. So I'm really excited about that, to have the homeowner on as well. So that's really going to be a good show. All right, so don't forget Monday night I'll be posting Carissa Fleck, Phil Siracusa, the Horsefly Chronicles case episode 2. So let me do some shout outs. Oh, my buddy, Real Supernatural, that's my buddy Dave Spinks. Hi, honey. Mom Tubi, Janet W, Jill Fort, Charmy Vapes, Willful Today, Summer Sims, Mama Joe Buffalo Woman, Desert Deity, Donella Daywood Love, Tiffany Twisted, Candy Roberts, BCH Bounds, Crystal Triplet. Thank you so much for modding, Crystal. Para Princess Patricia, Lisa Knox, Janice Bolt, Unique Sweet Annie, Chippa Terry, Midnight Emirata, Starry Night. Griffin Corcoran, yes, Griffin Corcoran. 925 Peter, Aaron Kemp, Barbara Peacock, River Culver, Butterfly Kisses, Bridget Harrison. Oh my gosh. David Coffin, Ginger Simmons. Okay, come on, guys. Joey the Dark Walker. Thanks, Joey. Louis Lully Tooby. Catherine Ward. Anybody else want to shout out? Luxus Langner. Andrew Cox. Happy trucking, Andrew. Make sure you're safe, huh? Safe trucking. Be safe out there. Tiffany Twisted. April Wilcher. Phil M. Oh, Phil. I had it posted on Facebook. Yeah, Melissa Gerber. Candy Roberts. Icy Lies. Oh, I'm hungry too, Starry Night. Anybody else want to shout out? Bridget Harrison. Anybody else? Okay, guys. Wow, that was a full 2-hour show tonight. And thanks. Royce, where did Royce go? Royce Hinman, where did you go? Oh, God. How many of you had corned beef and hash tonight? Luciana Daly. There you are. I see you, honey. Joker SDN. All right. Oh, there you are. Yes, thanks to all my mods. Royce. So, yeah, I'll have her back. I'll think of a topic for her to talk with us. Carl White. Oh, thank you. Well, I'm really glad you guys liked the show. She was absolutely wonderful, and she's highly intelligent, and she belongs to Mensa. She's a genius. Oh, Anita. Hi, Anita. All right, so Mary, oh my God, Mary Laureano. There you are, Royce. Anybody else want to shout out before I go? Yeah, she was excellent. I'm really glad you were happy with the show tonight. Okay, there's still 104, and anybody else want to shout out? Oh God, Lucas Langard. I think I said that. Thank you so much. Oh, Melissa, kitties are Jezebel and Sam Siam. Yeah, my kitty isn't here. They're both sleeping together over there. Okay, everybody, good night. Oh, Tommy Roberts. Hi, Tommy. Okay, everybody, there's still 100 people. I'd be more than happy to give you a shout out. Anyway, everybody, thanks so much. Until you guys cut. All right. Have a great week. I love you guys. And I appreciate all your support that you give me every week. I really appreciate it. And I try to bring you really good shows and find really good guests. It's a lot of work to find guests to bring to you, but I don't want to do just one thing. I want to do all kinds of topics, all kinds, just to give it a mixture, because you don't want the same thing, ghosts and demons every week. And I do have a guest coming on that's going to talk about near-death experiences and near-death visions, which is going to be awesome. And then I'm going to do on the last Thursday of the month with Mike Ricksecker, we're going to do Victorian photography. That's something I haven't done on my show. Oh, Kelly Doll. So, everybody, okay, so, oh, Nikki Stinson. Anybody else? Yeah, I mean, I got a mixture of all kinds of shows. I'm going to do another show in July on true crime. Mothers who kill children. I'm going to bring the boys on for Fox Hollow. That place is absolutely amazing. Hopefully I can bring Dave, Mike, and David Weatherly on, and we'll do a show on Fox Hollow. Oh, you'll find out what Victorian photography is. We're going to do that on the last Thursday, and I do, Kathy, too. I love true crime. But Fox Hollow is really, that place is really weird. And we are going to do another show on missing people. I'm doing that with David Weatherly and Dave Spinks. We're going to do another show on that. So everyone have a wonderful weekend. Oh, Donna Bowman. Yes, Donna, she is coming back in July. I'll set her up with a date in July. So thank you to my mods. Thank everyone so much for being here and always supporting my shows every week. The show keeps getting bigger and bigger every week. The chat room is awesome. We've got wonderful, wonderful people in our chat room. You guys are all awesome, awesome. So have a nice weekend, and gosh, guess what? Make sure you have a happy St. Patrick's Day, and next weekend is Easter Sunday. I can't wait. My daughter's cooking, and I can't wait to have Easter with her at her house next on Easter Sunday. All right, everybody, I'm going to go. I'm hungry. I'm going to go get something to eat. I will see you on, don't forget, Monday night with Carissa Fleck and Phil Saracusa, and I'll be posting that. If you want reminders, show reminders, I sent them out today. I don't know how many opened up their emails, but you can send your request. You have to go on to the, I think it's email page or contact page. I can't remember. I think it's email page. And it's ParanormalZone.TV. And you can send me your email, and I'll put you on the email list for show reminders. Hi, Michael. Yeah. Michael lives in St. Augustine, Florida, and he always wants us to do a show on St. Augustine. It is one of the most haunted areas. All right, everybody, I'm going to go. Good night, everyone. So don't forget. Okay. All right, so everybody, I love you. Good night, and thank you so much. Good night, everyone. I love you guys.